Hello everybody, you've made it now to the final project, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So in the course of doing a critical thinking course, the hope for you is that you're going to change the way you think about really anything in everyday life. You're going to think more clearly, you're going to be more precise about identifying the things that matter when you're trying to reach conclusions, and not just use it for the exercises for this course. Now, one of the most important areas where we engage and use our ability to think critically is what people often call the public discourse, and that is where you're participating as a citizen. Historically, the primary way that somebody could engage in public discourse was through something like sending in letters to the editor for their local newspaper. Of course, you would talk around coffee shops and the water cooler and things like that. But that was the primary way that it was done. Now, in our society, there's a way to participate in the public discourse. There's thousands of ways, and social media is one of the most obvious. But really, it's not a highly productive way. There are some people who make reasoned and thoughtful presentations in social media. But really, what seems to happen the most in social media is people express their views by finding somebody else who's expressed a similar view and then sharing that post until it becomes viral. But I want you to participate now and not only thinking about what others are saying on a topic, but also you saying something yourself on a given topic. And so we're going to follow the format of a letter to the editor. Now we'll follow the standard rules that are used or the standard requirements that are used for the local Springfield newspaper, the Springfield News Leader. It's a 300-word maximum, and your audience is well defined. It's the readers of the newspaper in Springfield. And your challenge or your assignment is to advance a conclusion on any topic that you like. So I've put some sample topics and maybe even some sample articles for you to look at. You don't have to pick one of those, although it would be fine if you did, but you could really advance a conclusion on any topic. So certainly political topics are pretty easy to think of a conclusion that you might want to advance, something in healthcare, something again with regard to law or particular voting issues, but you don't have to limit it to that. There are plenty of arguments that take place around sports, around electronics, around even fashion. Anything where you think a reader would likely be persuaded if they were to hear a good argument, you can engage on that topic. So the first piece where I assign a topic is I just want you to select an article or somebody else's argument on some issue in a general topic that you're interested in. The main reason I want you to do that is because I want you to participate in the public dialogue, not the public monologue. Have you ever been around one of these people who, without knowing what anybody's talking about, they walk up to a conversation, they hear like one thing, and then they start talking about what they think should be heard, and you're like, just listen to the conversation a little bit and hear about what others are saying before you jump in and participate in this conversation. Same idea. I just want you to hear and read from what some others are saying, reconstruct their argument, and tell me a little bit about what's going on there. But once you've done that, you're really free at that point to argue for anything you want in that topic. You don't have to respond to the original letter that you selected, but you can if you want. It's whatever you want to advance as the conclusion. So this is where I really want to see you bring in all the skills that you've learned. You should be able to clearly identify a conclusion, clearly identify the argument form or argument type that you're going to use, whether it's a simple modus ponens or disjunctive syllogism argument form, or if you're going to go with an inductive argument form like an analogy or an inference to the best explanation or an appeal to reliable authority. Any of these things are fine. Now remember, your audience is the Springfield general population readers of the newspaper. So if you bring in a bunch of technical information or just do a big data dump of statistics and things that people don't know whether they should trust, probably don't want to do that. I don't know that that's going to persuade anybody. You should engage in something like an analogy, for instance, where the reader can follow and can make their own judgment as to whether your argument succeeds. So make sure and think clearly about that and prepare it accordingly. Now, the way that you'll turn these in is I'll have a discussion board set up. Normally, if you were in a seated class, the way that we would do this is everybody would take a turn to read their letter to the class, and then we would have a chance to go back and forth. Because not only is being part of the dialogue the ability to express your argument, but the ability to hear people's objections or questions or concerns and respond on point to those. So I want that to happen here. So we've not done a lot of discussion board work, but this will be one where you will each post your argument by the due dates on a discussion board for your letters to the editor. Now everybody needs to go through and listen to everybody's letter to the editor presentation. Now, by the way, given what I just said, it may not be clear. I want you to both write it, and you're going to turn that into me in written form, but then I want you to get online and read it. So get in front of a video camera, read your letter. It helps people to understand what you're saying, to hear it from your own voice. And then we're going to comment on those. So if you listen to a letter to the editor and you're like, I'm not even sure what this person's arguing for, just politely say, I've read your letter. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to believe after reading your argument. Or maybe you know what you're supposed to believe, but you're like, I'm not really sure. What were the premises? What are the reasons I'm supposed to believe that? Feel free to put that in your comments as well. If you had a counter argument or if you disagree, feel free to present that. Or if maybe you agree, but you think that there's an objection that somebody would have and you want to say what you would say back to that objection, all that's fine. It's part of the dialogue. So once you present your letter to the editor, you need to respond to at least 4 people's letters themselves. And you need to also respond to everybody that responds to your letter. So we'll see what sort of conversations we get going here. Again, pick any topic that you like. Hopefully it's something that's interesting to you. Research it enough to write a good letter to the editor argument, but this is only 300 words. So you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. Don't even begin to put fluff in the argument because you feel like you need to expand it for length. This is going to be very difficult to get a full-blown argument, plus considering the objections that people might make against your argument, down into less than 300 words. I mean, think about what you got to do here. You got to have the premises and the conclusion, obviously, but you're going to need to probably explain them to some extent, maybe give some examples, maybe define some terms. Certainly if you're using a premise that's controversial, that needs a little support also. And then you need to at least consider what somebody might say that disagrees with you. I mean, if you're presenting a letter and the conclusion is something that nobody disagrees with, then it's not interesting and it's not a good letter to be in a newspaper. So your topic and your conclusion should be something that at least somebody would disagree with you. So respond to what that person might say. And by the time you do all that, it's going to be difficult to keep it under 300 words. If you find that you're not getting to 300 words and you feel like you need to expand it and add fluff and things that don't matter, then you probably have not done a good job. So you probably have left something out or not fully explained something. So make sure you really think about trying to get everything in there that needs to be in there. Do it clearly as possible, and concisely. Say things as concisely as possible. All right, let me know if you have any questions on exactly what needs to be done, and I'll answer those as clearly as possible so we can have a good set of letters to the editor and a good public dialogue for the course to wrap up this semester. Really what I want to see from everybody is using the skills both in making an argument and evaluating an argument that we've learned throughout this semester.